ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवती अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवत् गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्ण प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सस्तुतिर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटन् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमलः प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुल्लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतस्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैर्गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। Now I'll recite 4 shlokas from chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. उद्धरेदात्मनात्मानं नात्मानमवसादये आत्मैवह्यात्मनो बन्धुरात्मैव रिपुरात्मनः। बन्धुरात्मात्मनस्तस्य येनात्मैवात्मना जितः अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवत् यतो यतो निश्चरति मनश्चञ्चलमस्थिरम् ततस्ततो नियम्यैतदात्मन्येव वशन्नये श्रीभगवानुवाच असंशयं महाबाहो मनो दुर्निग्रहे चलम् अभ्यासेन तु कौन्तेय वैराग्येण च गृह्यते. Thank you.
Thank you, Karuna.
Thank you.
Okay. So on the chart that we have our last topic to be uncontrolled mind. We know what our uncontrolled mind is like. So much that we like to keep it in control, especially when we go into meditation center, and all we find is that our mind has gone in all directions. It's like being on a ice hockey. You see how the ball goes to one side, and then you have to push it to the other side, and it try to bring it to its focal point on the goal, and it's not easy. But sometimes it does happen. Okay. Now, 6.5 was the first verse that Karuna recited. It means elevate yourself through the power of your mind and do not degrade yourself, for the mind can be a friend and also the enemy of the self. Now, let us see what it means to elevate ourselves. We must accept responsibility for the present level of spirituality or lack of thereof. It is like we have to pull ourselves by our own bootstraps. Our spiritual growth is dependent on how well we can control our mind. When our mind is not controlled, it can sabotage our aspiration to become a man of perfection. Mind can be an adversary, or our controlled mind can be our biggest supporter to us to reach our goal, to realize God. Now, a friendly mind functions at 4 levels. At what we see, the mind sees and reacts. The intellect, the analysis, and the intellect thinks, analyzes, and decides, and that's also called buddhi. Then there is chit. When it is attached to an object, it is called mind stuff or chit. Ego. When it identifies with the body and becomes proud of things like wealth, status, beauty, and learning, we call it ahankar or ego. So the mind has to, is a grouping of man, buddhi, chit, ahankar. And it is together called mind, intellect, chit, and ego. But in reality, they are all the same. They are part of the same mind. Now, let us say, and you will wonder, what is mind? Mind is the same internal equipment explained in 4 ways. Shri Krishna says, surrender your mind and intellect to God. And then he says, use your higher mind, which is the intellect, to control the low mind or the uncontrolled mind. Now, I am going to repeat the verse 6.5. Let a man lift himself by his own self alone, and let him not lower himself. For this self alone is a friend of oneself, and this self is the enemy of oneself. Mind is impacted by external activities, but more so by desires, instincts of wishing, yearning, and to continue to desire. These feelings and thoughts are internal. Therefore, to control the mind, you don't only withdraw from the outer world, but also dry up or shrink up all inner desires. The root cause, it is called inner disturbance. It's inside the mind. No, only we are responsible for the inside of our mind, and only we can take the responsibility to modify it and control it. And how do we control it? It's very easy for someone to say, control your mind. But how? Well, we have yoga and we have meditation and pranayam. All these things that are mentioned in our Bhagavad Gita and Patanjali, they are the true way of life, the only possible best way to internalize the control and reach our goal of God realization. Now, 6.6, the second verse that she recited, for those who have conquered the mind, it is their friend. For those who have failed to do so, the mind works as an enemy. Now let's analyze this. First, let's see how the mind works as an enemy. A mind, which is a function of thoughts and our reactions to circumstances. If we think negative and brew those negative thoughts, we are miserable, and all the time we are tense, anxious, or stressed. So the root cause of the restless mind or the disturbed mind or the uncontrolled mind is the internal enemy. And what are these internal enemies that are making us tense, anxious, and stressed? Lust, anger, greed, envy, malice. These internal negative feelings are more harmful than outside circumstances. These are considered our internal enemies. So what do we do to an enemy? When there's an enemy, what do? We resist, we attack, and we conquer. And that is what we do to our uncontrolled monkey mind. Just visualize a monkey jumping from one branch of the tree to the other, cannot settle down in one place, keeps running around his environment. Weapons, now we need weapons to conquer anything, right? Our weapons to conquer this unruly mind are to control the senses and the mind through spiritual practices. So you know what our senses are. The sense of seeing, the sense of touch, the sense of hearing, the sense of feeling, all kinds of senses and beyond. These spiritual practices, we have to use mental exercises. And the mental exercises can only come from concentration and silencing our mind. And once it is calm, try to meditate on one focal point. To control negative thoughts. Now, when you are in this state of mind where you are anxious and stressed, you have negative thoughts. Now we have to reverse these negative thoughts into positive ones. And then what happens? The mind will become your friend, or for an unshakable yogi. He has to exhaust all possible obstacles. Steady mind with equanimity in heat and cold, pleasure and pain, honor and dishonor. He has to start to steady his mind and say everything is okay, whether it's hot or cold, whether somebody likes me or not, whether whether the people respect me or disrespect me, I am calm inside. So these outside forces will stop bothering you. Now, the next verse is 626. Whenever and wherever the restless and unsteady mind wanders, one should bring it back and continuously focus it on God. And this mind can only be under the control of ourselves. Only we can control it. Now, this does not happen overnight. It takes regular exercises, meditation, and spiritual practices. And it's constant effort. And once you make a constant effort, it is eventually doable. When you meditate to control the mind, what happens? Your intellect has to do a lot of work. He has to continuously remind the mind the material world is not our goal, but in fact, the goal of life is God realization. The intellect reminds you all the time and goes back to our mind, which is so restless like a monkey, it keeps going to the external world. It sees something and it forgets what its real goal is, and it keeps running out. So the only the key tool to help us control our mind is told to be meditation. We can do it, keep bringing it back to focus on God, the Almighty, the Supreme. The mind is like this game, pinball game. The ball wants to go into the hole, but we have to stop it from going into the hole. And we use the tools to stop from going into the hole. We keep pushing, you keep pushing the ball so it doesn't go in the hole. But if you do, you lose a point. And it's someday it goes. Try again and again. Eventually, you will become the master of your mind. If sometimes you can't control on some days for various reasons, then don't beat yourself up. Say, okay, I'll try again. Even if it takes you a lifetime to try to control your mind to the fullest, take your time, but keep trying. Never give up. That is very important. Now, the next verse that we are going to do is 27, 627. Great transcendental happiness comes to the yogi whose mind is calm, whose passions are subdued, who is without sin, and who sees everything in connection with God. In a way, it summarizes the three verses that we have already discussed. And it says that as your effort to control the mind is improved and detached from the external world of sense objects and starts to establish upon God, the passions of the restless, active mind get subdued and serene. And the mind is not agitated anymore. When it gets to this point, then it becomes one's automatic nature to control. And whatever it has taken you to be able to control, those weapons already know what they're supposed to do. And that's when you will start to experience the experience of bliss of God. And once you have tasted happiness, joy, pleasure, bliss, then you will go after it. Because if you were not getting satisfaction from some other things, and then suddenly you get satisfaction from this particular experience, which is happiness, real pleasure, and true bliss, then you will always go for that time where you are steady, you are equanimous and calm and silent, and the outside world is not bothering you. When the mind is steady and pure, then one's consciousness is also spiritually elevated and is ready to experience the highest bliss. So, what we have learned from these four verses is that yes, our mind is restless, and yes, it's not easy to control. But unfortunately, there is no shortcut other than trying to do, and all the answers are written in the Bhagavad Gita and then further elaborated upon like a workbook in Patanjali. And we have to take both these books seriously, and we don't need to go to a clinical psychologist or a therapist or somewhere to say, come, please help me control my mind. Of course, if you're obsessive compulsive, or if you have become, you're stuck in your head about something and you just can't get it out, that level of mind is also, we have to do all these things, but you may need professional help. But we are studying from these books only our effort, our self-effort. But nowadays, there are so many therapies available, and there's nothing to be ashamed of in seeking psychological uh, consultations and control the mind, because the advanced restless mind is obsessive compulsive. It can be harmful to others. It can make you commit suicide, homicide, anything. So those, if you ever feel or your relatives feel you are at that level, then seek professional help. But that's not the subject I can discuss further. Now, I ran out of pages, so I had everything written here and there. So I am going to summarize these 4 verses. Is called control of the mind and the senses, resolute intellect, steady contemplation on God, devotion to God, union with God, and have knowledge of the senses, the knowledge of how to meditate, and quietude of the mind. Then only peaceful and happy and have understanding, and you will develop discriminative intellect to find solution to life's problems and challenges, and this is equal to emotional peace. So here is ways to overcome fixated thoughts. Now I'm going to give you point for point how to overcome the thoughts that are disturbing you. And it is nothing out of the world, I'm going to say. It's something you have heard again and again. Deep breathing. We have already read about it in Bhagavad Gita. Pranayam, Bhagavad Gita. Yoga exercises, aerobics, brisk walk, jog. When you're young and more energetic, you just don't stop at yoga exercises. They're very good in their own right, but you must try to go out for a brisk walk, aerobics if you can, and jogging. You have to go beyond if you are strong enough. De-stress before bedtime. And how will you de-stress before bedtime? Biofeedback and meditation. And then if you focus on the positives through the day and forget about the negatives that happen during the day, you will get good deep sleep. Next, gratitude prayer. Any time in the day, morning, afternoon, or night, whenever you have time, you sit down and do a gratitude prayer till it becomes second nature to you. Why? Because we are always saying, oh, I don't have this. I don't have that. I wish I had this. I wish I had that. I don't know when will I have that. No. Stop your brain and say, I'm glad I have this, and I'm glad I have that. I'm glad I have this. And rest, God will provide me when He thinks it's right. Leave it to God, surrender to God what you don't have, but be thankful to him for what he has given you. Same thing is with your health. You may say, oh, I wish I didn't have a backache. I wish I didn't have a backache. Well, be happy that you don't have ache anywhere else. And humble yourself. Sometimes you should go do selfless service, or even if you visit some hospital or a nursing home or people where the disabled people are, and what you see in this world, you'll be so thankful that you are not there and you're still able to do something. And it's very, very important to develop gratitude prayer. Practice mindfulness, which is the biofeedback. And next, do activities that bring you joy. I know yoga gives you joy. I know doing some cooking at home will give you joy, or meeting friends will give you joy. But there is something called leisure activities, like a game or playing even some nice card game with someone which doesn't involve gambling, playing tennis, going swimming, listening to music. The reason we say this is because the leisure activity connects you to another person, because you're not going to do activity without some people. So that improves your social skills, your need to be with others, and that itself is a positive state of affairs. If you're thinking too much and distracting yourself with a restless mind, distract yourself. Just distract your restless mind. It's like when the child insists on playing with this or that, you say, okay, let's go look at the birds outside. Immediately the child will forget those toys and go outside to look at the birds. So distract yourself. Watch a comedy, sit in the sun, go walk in the garden and nature. Again, push disturbing thoughts out of your mind. Intrinsic thoughts keep coming back repeatedly. In true, the disturbing thoughts do keep coming back repeatedly and do go away for a long time. Now, I already talked to you a little bit about obsessive compulsive disorder. When violent thoughts keep coming to your mind because you are angry, anger is one of those lust, anger behavior, that if they keep coming to your mind, relax your muscles, do some selfless activity, and change your thought process. If you cannot, as I said earlier, consult with a clinical psychologist, a confidant, or uh, your parents if you're young, and if you're an adult. If you cannot talk to your relatives or your parents about it, then seek help. Anxiety, that was another negative thing we talked about. Anxiety thoughts must be controlled. Otherwise, they take you in such a negative direction that you cannot turn around. And you've gone too far into the negative world and got into depression. You have to intercept your negative thoughts. It's a must. So, block yourself and control yourself not to reach that level of depression or anxiety that you need professional help or they start to harm you. So within your scope, while you are still alert and you are at the level of a restless mind that is controllable through asanas and pranayams and meditation, do that. At least do that. Perhaps you'll never need anything more in terms of interception. So to avoid those kind of thoughts, the other kind of things that can happen to you is, again, no matter what the question, you will know what the answer is. And those are trauma-related thoughts. If you had an accident and you're constantly thinking of that accident, you have to stop thinking constantly. Paranoid thoughts, lack of sleep, and you're paranoid. Again, for a paranoid thoughts, again, calm your mind, equanimous, steady, purify. All that we read in details in the last 2 books, you will find answers. And don't put yourself down, no matter what. Don't feel like a loser, that you are not good enough. Again, be happy and thankful to God that you are what you are. And even if you're not good enough, you're good and better than many. So this was a very calming sentence, a very powerful sentence, that I may not be good enough, but I'm better than many. It will again start to calm you down. So, and if you ignore some thoughts, like you're angry with a friend, and you sit down and you're angry again, I wish he had done this, I wish he had done this. And again, you are angry. And again, that angry thought comes in the evening, then it comes again at night. Ignore it. Ignore those thoughts. When you ignore something, what happens? They go away. So the thoughts will go away. So there is a lot of thoughts. It's not just simple thoughts, very easy sentence to say negative thoughts, positive thoughts. But these thoughts are deeper problems. These are, the restlessness is coming from a very deep level. And we have to address those through trauma, through bad incident in life, even if it's rape or divorce, domestic violence. All these are not going to go away. And you don't need professional help for everything. If you do the basics, the 90% of your restlessness will be resolved through whatever we have learned in our spiritual books. And last but not the least, please keep reading your spiritual books on a regular basis. It is like a reminder to you of what you're supposed to do. It's constant effort, even to be a positive person in your daily life. And in order to deal with the deeper paranoid thoughts or traumatic thoughts, there has to be some mantras, some quotations that will help you tide through that. So this is how much I could say about the restless mind and how to control it. Now, I had myself written a poem on the challenge of controlling the mind, and I did not get to print it. So if you give me a minute, I'll open my computer and read it to you. You will really feel good listening to a very lively little poem. So far, any questions? Any questions, anybody? Yes.